Hi, this is Russell Tammany for Before You Buy, and today I'll be reviewing the Canon 1DX Digital SLR. Now, this is Canon's top-of-the-line DSLR. They've replaced the 1DS and the regular 1D lineup with the 1DX. So this is basically the best Canon digital SLR on the market today. Now, it has an 18 megapixel full-frame sensor with a native ISO of 51,200. Which is quite high. You can push it up to 204,800, but the quality at that level is really not usable. So for all intents and purposes, it's 51,200 ISO. It has a 61-point autofocus, so this camera is intended for sports, tracking. It's 12 frames a second. That's the main feature of it, is that you get twice the frames per second of the 5D Mark III. So it's really important when you're shooting something like sports that you actually get the image where the boxer connects the punch, or the exact image that you want in an accident in a car race. So getting twice the number of pictures over the 5D Mark III is really the key feature of this camera. Now, you get a lot of features here. There's a lot of ports and options on this camera. It has a microphone in with manual audio levels. You still have the old connector for the shutter release. One thing that I've really wanted Canon to do forever is to add a in-camera intervalometer so that you didn't have to purchase an expensive external controller to shoot time-lapse. Sadly, that's still not in Canon's top-of-the-line cameras, while it's pretty much in every Nikon DSLR. You also have a PC sync port. Something new in the 1DX is you have an Ethernet port. This Ethernet port can be used for tethered shooting and remote control of the camera. The Wi-Fi option is also available, and it plugs into the port that's right next to it. So you basically have the choice of either Wi-Fi or Ethernet, but it's nice that the Ethernet is built in, because most of the time that you're doing a tethered shoot, it's in a studio, and it's really more reliable to work with Ethernet than Wi-Fi on a tethered shoot anyway. You also have a micro, actually it's not micro, it's a mini HDMI, as well as a regular mini USB. So the mini USB can also be used for tethered shooting. I've tested it with a DSLR controller on Android, and you can plug an Android phone with USB host directly into it, control shooting and focus, and basically use it like you would with Lightroom. So you've also got a couple of new features on the back side of the camera. So one of the important things that they've done is they've added this multi-controller, which allows you to directly select focus points to the vertical grip. One thing you can do with the 5D Mark III and other cameras is purchase a battery grip, which gives you the vertical shutter, as well as some other controls for when you're shooting in portrait mode, which is generally what you're going to be doing if you're shooting people, is you're going to be using portrait mode quite a bit. So the previous camera that I had, which is the 1D Mark III, was missing the multi-controller. So it was very awkward to be using the camera in portrait mode, but every time you wanted to change the focus up to someone's eyes, have to reach over on the back and change the focus point on that controller. So you now have every single control, except for the quick button, which isn't really used for shooting, available to you in the vertical grip option. It maintains all of Canon's regular 1D style dual LCD, where you can select which card you're writing to, and also you can tell whether you've got a GPS or a network connection, what folder you're in, what file number you're on, as well as the regular top LCD, which shows you the ISO and mode and exposure, shooting modes, all that kind of stuff that's regularly on the top of the screen is still there. And then because this camera records at 12 frames a second or 14 in JPEG when it's not doing autofocus, it requires very, very fast memory. It can also do 1080p, 30 frames a second, all intra-frame codec video, which is very high bit rate. So because of that, this camera drops the SD cards that used to be in the Mark III and Mark IV. So what you get is you get dual compact flash, but it's UDMA7 support. So it'll do about 100 megabytes a second. And in this camera, this is one of the only cameras on the market that it's actually worth paying for a UDMA7 card, like Lexar's 1000X series. Most other cameras, you're fine with a UDMA 5 or 6 card because you're not going to get any extra performance out of it. But I've tested this with my older SanDisk Extreme cards and this new Lexar card. clears the buffer much quicker. So this camera feels great to operate. It's very, very responsive and fast. And at the 12 frames a second, that's how long you can shoot in RAW to the compact flash before you start to hit the buffer. So it's somewhere around 48, 49 shots, which is really amazing. The other amazing thing is that with those fast cards, you can just set up. You can just set up and do it again. So you have a couple seconds between what you're shooting, and you can go right back. And you're basically never waiting on the buffer. So this camera is extremely, extremely performance-oriented and is really amazing. The other thing that you'll notice is that the viewfinder blackout time has been reduced quite a bit. So when you're using higher shutter speeds and you take a picture, you barely see the viewfinder blink out at all. It's so quick that you don't notice it go to black. It just sort of flickers a little bit. So overall, this is an excellent camera. The pros are that it's full frame, 18 megapixels, very clean at high ISOs, looks excellent at lower ISOs. It's very sharp and a fast camera to shoot on. It tracks autofocus and has a very long amount of shots before you actually hit a buffer at that high 12 frames a second. I really can't say enough good things about this camera, but the cons are that the price is $6,799, and that's for the body only. That's a rather expensive camera. It's more expensive than the previous regular 1D Mark III and IV were when they came out. However, it's cheaper than the 1DS, which used to be the only full-frame camera that Canon made that was slower. So essentially, you've got a 1DS that now shoots 12 frames a second and has a great autofocus system. So Canon is sort of justified in where they've priced this camera. I do have a couple of other complaints, like that GPS wasn't built in. You have to purchase a separate GPS unit, plug it into where the Wi-Fi connector plugs into. This just sort of gets in the way, and it's a little slower than having the GPS built in. It also doesn't have a headphone jack, which would be great for video, to be able to monitor your actual recording. It's something that we do with video cameras, and Canon has not decided to put that on a rather expensive Pro DSLR. The intervalometer being missing, and just the actual size and weight of it. This is not the easiest thing to travel with. It's also very noticeable when you're walking around with it. So you're not going to blend in as a tourist. People are going to come up to you and ask you about your camera and what you're shooting and look at what you're shooting, which is rather distracting. The basic summary is that while this camera is really outstanding, the 5D Mark III, which is about $3,000 less, is a very, very close competitor to this camera. Canon, for the first time, has put in the same autofocus system, however not the same metering and tracking system, into the 5D III. It is also 6 frames a second. It's a little higher megapixels and a little bit higher noise, but it is an outstanding camera. So I'm still going to give this Canon 1DX a buy, even though it is a lot more expensive than a 5D Mark III. If you're looking at a 1 series professional camera, I feel that it's a better choice than Nikon's D4, and I feel that it's a fantastic camera. So I give it a buy, with a but of that you really should be buying the 5D Mark III unless there's a very good reason for you to upgrade to the 1DX. This is Russell Tammany for Before You Buy, reviewing the Canon 1DX.
Thank you, Russell. I now have Shannon Morris, producer of Before You Buy.
Hi.
Hi, Shannon.
How's it going?
It's very well. New employee of Twit.
Yes,
Everybody's
thank
so
you.
glad to have you. You've got the 1DX.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
And I'm
I walked
noticing
a
you're
Russell
sort
in
of
the back
double
room.
palming it because it's heavy.
It's like 4 pounds. It's really, really heavy.
Yeah. In fact, I think I
heavier than
said
my
something like,
cat.
"Oh, I think this is 7 pounds," and someone said, "No, it's only about 4.5." But
Wow.
it's heavier
It
than
feels
your
like
cat's.
a lot more. Yeah. And he mentioned in his review how when you take pictures, yeah, they go so fast you can't even see the shutter move.
Yeah,
Try
I mean,
it out.
listen, this is a beautiful, beautiful camera, and I think that it's priced pretty much all of us out of even.
Oh yeah.
Breathing
Which is why I
on
locked
it.
Russell in the back room, and I'm gonna take it home.
Yeah, and, Russell's got a lens on here. He said it was another about $1,800. So I mean, this entire package is the sort of thing where if I'm on a vacation, I don't even want anybody to see me holding this because they will
Definitely
take
not.
my head off
Yeah.
and steal it. It's beautiful. It's if you're a pro, and especially if you're really concerned with action photography, photojournalistic
Oh, yeah,
stuff,
this would be perfect
where
for that.
it's super fast shutter speed and a lot of storage all at once, makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
For the average consumer, I just prefer to drool.
Definitely go for
Not
the
on
5D
it,
if
of
you're
course.
average consumer.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You have another review coming up.
I do. Yeah, I'm reviewing the Logitech keyboard that I'm checking out this week.
All right, cool. Well, we'll get to that in just a second.